Welcome back to this next video, and in this video we're going to be going over self-assessment tax returns. I'm going to be going over a step-by-step guide running through each section of the self-assessment tax return, and whether you're preparing to do it or whether you're mid-submission of this form, it'll be a great video for you to watch to really get an understanding of what documents are needed and how to complete the self-assessment tax return on time to avoid any fines and penalties from HMRC. This first section is going to be looking at preparing for your self-assessment tax return and obtaining all the documents that you need in order to complete your submission. It's really important that getting organised now means that you'll be more efficient and there'll be less stress down the line. So there are several essential documents that you will need, and these include bank statements for all your business accounts, however many accounts that you've got, receipts and invoiced, hopefully categorised by expense category and month of when that expense incurred, mileage records and travel receipts and fuel receipts for all your business mileage that you've completed throughout the tax year. And if you've completed a tax return before, it's really beneficial to have your previous tax return available, so it's there as a reference point if you need at any point during your current year submission. In terms of some of the income records that you'll need to retain and have available for you, this will include any invoices that you've issued out to customers and payments that you've received against those invoices from bank statements, any online statements from any online platforms that you use to make sales, as well as any cash receipts where you've taken any cash payments from your customers, as well as any specific loans or interest statements that you've got from bank. When we're looking at expense records, some of the documentation that you will need and require for this complete form include having your receipts recorded by category and month, same as your income receipts, having any home office or dual purpose expenses recorded and made available, and any equipment that you've purchased, making sure you have all the relevant receipts, and again a portion to how much you use those for business versus personal use. There's also a few tasks that I think that you should complete essentially before you complete your self-assessment tax return, and this includes reconciliation of your bank accounts, calculating your total income and expenditure each month and over the year, and gathering any missing documentation. What this will do is when you come to the submission of your tax return and once you've completed your form, you'll be able to do a sense check back to what you've already calculated to ensure that it makes sense and is accurate. And what I like to do is making sure that I've got a checklist for each time I submit a self-assessment tax return, and this ensures that I don't miss any documentation or information that I require. It also helps to ensure consistency between your self-assessment tax returns, and this will result in it being less likely for HMRC to actually flag your claim for review. So section 2 of this video is actually going to be looking at navigating the HMRC website and actually understanding where you go to complete your submission. So hopefully by now you would have already set up your government gateway ID, you already have a unique tax reference number, and this won't be the first time that you've accessed this platform. You can search the self-assessment tax return completion from Google. This will take you straight to the relevant page in order to sign into your government gateway ID and in order for you to then start your submission. There's various help and guidance on HMRC's website in the various help sections, and this will help you to navigate and ensure that you complete each section correctly and accurately. And if you've got any common sort of login issues, such as you've forgotten your government gateway ID or you've forgotten your password, there are various links on the government website in order for you to reset those and be resent your government IDs. I would also ensure that you're completing this form on a desktop or a laptop computer rather than doing it on your phone. It just makes it so much easier and the forms look much clearer, and it's easier to navigate around the system. So the rest of this video is going to be looking at going through each of the relevant forms that you'll need to complete as part of your self-assessment tax return, and also the submission and payment of your tax return once you've completed it. So the first bit, and arguably the most important bit, is where your profits get calculated. The first section is your business details section, and this will ask you for the name of your business, the nature of your business, when the accounting period starts and ends, and any business address and details such as your own address, as well as the company address if you're trading from a different site. You then need to go into the income section, and hopefully you would have already pre-calculated your sales and your turnover for the year, and you'll input that number into the first section. You'll then include any other business income, and that could include things such as bank interest. And you also need to make sure that you're including in this section any goods that you've purchased partly for personal use, and you'll add these in here as well. Next, it will take you through the expenses, and this is generally split out into different expense categories, which is why I said it's really important that you've already pre-categorised your expenses into the relevant categories in order to complete this form. Some of the common categories include things such as travel, advertising and marketing, and office supplies. There's also professional fees and sort of a general other expenses. You then need to go through making sure you're allocating your correct capital allowances, so any capital purchases over £1,000, making sure you've included any AIA for your annual investment allowance, again something which I've covered in the previous video. and again, such things as car and expensive equipment are also included in this section. Once you've added in all of your turnover, you then added in all your expenses. This will then generate a profit that's calculated at the bottom, and hopefully this already matches what you pre-calculated before you started this form. It's really important that you check these figures to make sure they make sense, they're accurate, and they form a correct view of how the business has performed and how you performed over the year. And it's really important that you check for any missing information, such as dates being incorrect, making sure that you've got any missing expenses included, and make sure you've recorded all your income that you've had during the year. There are then also additional deductions which are really important to make sure you include, and this includes things such as any employment income that you may have had from previous jobs or existing jobs that you've had during the year, any property or rental income, any investment income, any dividends, and also any foreign income considerations that you may have. You must make sure that you declare all of your income, and it's super important that you do so to make it as accurate as possible, and you make sure that you're paying the correct level of tax. You then go through a section which makes sure you allocate your personal deductions, and this includes things such as the personal allowance, which is $12,570, which is accurate at the current tax year of this recording. You may have additional allowances such as marriage allowance and also blind person allowance if you're eligible for those particular deductions. You then need to include any deductions that you've made, such as pensions that you've made directly into pension pots, and also any gift aid donations that you may have made during the year, any professional subscriptions that you may have paid, and that will help to reduce your tax, and any working from home allowances that you may be eligible for, as well as any uniform or specific tools allowances. It's really important that you're bringing this all together because this all affects your personal tax bill. You've got your income, you've calculated your expenses and your profit. You then need to make sure you calculate all your correct deductions that you're allowable, as this will help you to reduce the amount of tax that you're payable, but obviously you need to make sure that you're not claiming for more deductions that you're actually entitled to. Once that's all been completed, that will then bring you down to the final checks and ready for submission. It's really important that you check that all the numbers sum correctly, as well as checking through your return in detail to make sure it's accurate. Once you've completed your submission electronically, which is how most people do this, you'll get an email or confirmation of your submission from HMRC. It will then offer you to make payment against this. You don't have to make payment straight away. However, if you're submitting on the 31st of January, you must make payment straight away, and the deadline for payment is the 31st of January. So if you're completing your submission prior to this, you have up until the 31st of January in order to make your payment before incurring any fines and penalties for late payments fees. In the previous video that I've done, I've gone into quite some detail in terms of the fines and penalties that are incurred on both late submissions and late payments, so it's really important that you go and look at that video and making sure you're complying with these deadlines. You can also set up a direct debit, and that will obviously ensure that you never miss a payment, and it will go out of your bank straight away when the payments are due. And again, once you've completed this submission, it's really important that you save down these files so that you've got them for future reference, and also if HMRC want to investigate on your tax return, you've got all the evidence that you need to prove your claim. I would also advise that you set reminders for future years. It's really important that you meet these deadlines, and once you've done it once, you'll get into the flow of doing it again and again. So it's really important that you do that so you never miss a deadline again.